The Fragile Edge of Us. Chapter 1. Rain and Resonance. The rain fell in relentless sheets, turning the streets of downtown into shimmering mirrors of neon and street lamp gold. Elena Carter pressed her palm against the bookstore's fogged-up window, watching the world blur beyond the glass. She hated storms. Always had. They reminded her of things she'd rather forget. Car accidents with no survivors, hospital waiting rooms, the way grief could flood a person from the inside out. But today the rain had driven her into Page Turner's, a cramped little indie bookstore that smelled like old paper and bergamot tea. She wasn't here for anything in particular, just an escape from the noise in her head. Alana trailed her fingers along the spines of the poetry section, her nails chipped from late-night painting sessions. She paused at a worn copy of The Sun and Her Flowers, flipping it open to a random page. "You mustn't have to love me, but you must know I love you!" She exhaled sharply. Too heavy for a Tuesday afternoon. A crash echoed from the front of the store, followed by a muttered curse. Elena turned just in time to see a man kneeling on the floor, gathering scattered sheet music into his arms. His dark hair was damp from the rain, curling slightly at the nape of his neck, and his shoulders were broad beneath a leather jacket that had seen better days. Something about him made her hesitate. Maybe it was the way his fingers moved, quick, practiced, like he was used to picking up broken things. Without thinking, Elena crouched beside him, catching a loose page before it could flutter away. "Here," she said, handing it over. He looked up, and she was struck by the warmth in his eyes, hazel, flecked with gold like sunlight through whiskey. "Thanks," he said, flashing a grin that was equal parts charm and mischief. "I swear, I'm not usually this much of a disaster," Elena smirked. "That's exactly what a disaster would say." He laughed, a rich, easy sound that filled the quiet space between them. "Fair point. I'm Daniel." "Elena." He stood, tucking the last of the sheets under his arm. "So, Elena, do you always rescue strangers from their own clumsiness? Or is today a special occasion?" She crossed her arms. "Only when they're blocking the aisle." Daniel clutched his chest in mock offense. "Ouch. And here I thought you were just a kind-hearted soul." Elena rolled her eyes, but she couldn't fight the smile tugging at her lips. There was something dangerously disarming about him. The rain hammered harder against the windows. "You're not going anywhere in that," Daniel said, nodding toward the storm. "Neither are you, apparently." He shrugged. "Guess we're stuck here. You into poetry?" He gestured to the book she'd abandoned on the shelf. "Sometimes," she admitted, "when I'm feeling dramatic." Daniel grinned. "I like dramatic." And just like that, against her better judgment, Elena found herself sitting across from him in the bookstore cafe, nursing a too-sweet chai latte while he scribbled notes in the margins of his sheet music. "So musician?" she asked. "Guitarist," he confirmed. "Or at least I try to be. You?" "Painter." "Ah, an artist." His eyes gleamed. "No wonder you have that whole mysterious and brooding thing going on," Elena snorted. "I'm not brooding." "Sure you're not." He leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. "Tell me something real about you, Elena Carter." She hesitated. The rain outside had softened to a murmur, and the air between them felt charged, like the moment before a lightning strike. "I don't believe in love at first sight," she said finally. Daniel's smile didn't waver. "Good thing we're taking it slow, then." And just like that, the walls she'd spent years building trembled. Chapter 2. Fragile Beginnings. Elena regretted giving Daniel her number. Not because he was annoying. No, that would have been easier. It was because he was persistent. 3 days after their bookstore meeting, her phone buzzed with a new message. "Unknown number." So, Elena Carter, still brooding? She stared at the screen, debating whether to respond. "Elena, who is this?" "Daniel, the disaster you rescued from certain doom in the poetry aisle." A pause. Then, "Daniel, also, you should have saved my number." She rolled her eyes but saved his contact. "Elena, what do you want?" "Daniel, dinner, tomorrow. Say yes so I can stop overthinking this text." Elena hesitated. She didn't do dates. Not since her last relationship had ended in a slow, suffocating collapse. But something about Daniel's effortless confidence made her fingers type before she could stop herself. Elena, fine, but I pick the place. She chose a tiny Italian restaurant tucked between a laundromat and a pawnshop. The kind of place with flickering candlelight and a chef who yelled in Sicilian from the kitchen. If Daniel was expecting some sleek, pretentious date spot, he was in for a surprise. Elena arrived 10 minutes early, just to secure a table near the back, away from the windows, away from prying eyes. She tugged at the sleeves of her sweater, suddenly regretting her choice of outfit. Why does this feel like a mistake? The bell above the door chimed, and Daniel walked in, scanning the room. When his eyes landed on her, his entire face lit up. "You came," he said, sliding into the chair across from her. Elena raised an eyebrow. "Did you think I wouldn't?" "Honestly, 50-50 chance." She smirked. "You're not wrong." Daniel leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "So why this place?" "Because," she said, "if this goes badly, at least the carbonara will be worth it." He laughed, loud enough that the elderly couple at the next table glanced over. "I like your priorities." The waiter arrived, and Daniel ordered without looking at the menu. Gnocchi in sage butter, a bottle of red wine, tiramisu to share. Elena blinked. "You've been here before." "Once or twice," he shrugged. "Best hidden spot in the city." She narrowed her eyes. "Did you plan this?" Daniel grinned. "Maybe I did some recon." "Wanted to impress you. Or stalk me. Same difference." Elena shook her head, but she couldn't fight the warmth spreading in her chest. 2 hours later, the wine was gone, the plates were empty, and Elena realized with a jolt that she hadn't checked her phone once. Daniel had a way of pulling her into the moment, making everything else fade. He told her about touring with his band, about growing up in a house where music was the only language spoken. She told him about her art, about how painting was the only time she felt in control. "So," he said, swirling the last drops of wine in his glass, "why don't you believe in love at first sight?" Elena stiffened. "That's a first date question." "I'm impatient." She exhaled, tracing the rim of her glass. "Because love isn't something that happens to you. It's something you build, something you choose." Daniel studied her for a long moment. Then, softly, "What if it's both?" Elena's breath caught. Before she could respond, the waiter dropped off the check. Daniel snatched it before she could reach for her wallet. "I've got it," he said. "You don't have to. I want to." His voice was firm. Elena hesitated, then nodded. Outside, the night air was cool against her skin. The city hummed around them, alive and restless. Daniel shoved his hands in his pockets. "Walk you home?" She should have said no. She always said no. But tonight? "Okay," she whispered. And when his fingers brushed against hers as they walked, she didn't pull away. Chapter 3: The Art of Letting In. Elena's apartment was a shrine to half-finished emotions. Canvases leaned against every wall, some vibrant with color, others smudged into grayscale frustration. Her easel stood in the center of the room like an altar, bearing the beginnings of a new piece, storm clouds over a city skyline, all jagged edges and brooding shadows. She scowled at it. Not right. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. Daniel. "Still alive? Or did I scare you off?" She hadn't replied to his last 3 texts. Not because she didn't want to, because she did, and that was the problem. Elena picked up her brush, swirling it in a pool of indigo. The doorbell rang. She froze. No one ever just showed up. Her friends knew better. Her family lived states away. The bell rang again. Elena wiped her hands on her jeans and peered through the peephole. Daniel stood on her welcome mat, holding 2 paper cups of coffee and a brown paper bag that smelled like cinnamon. He grinned at the door like he could sense her staring. She yanked it open. "What are you doing here?" "You weren't answering your phone." He held out the coffee. "I brought bribes." Elena stared at him. "You don't even know where I live?" "I asked Jasmine at the bookstore." You what? Daniel shrugged. She said you come in every Thursday to browse art monographs. Took some convincing, but that's creepy. His smile faltered. Yeah, it is. I'm sorry. He ran a hand through his hair. I just wanted to see you. Something in his voice made her chest tighten. Elena exhaled sharply and stepped aside. You're lucky I like coffee. Daniel's gaze swept over her apartment as he entered, lingering on the canvases. Wow. What? You're good. He stepped closer to one, a fractured self-portrait, her face split between light and shadow. Elena crossed her arms. It's not finished. It's incredible. His fingers hovered near the paint, not touching. Why don't you show these anywhere? They're not for other people. Daniel turned to study her. Everything's for someone, Elena. She didn't have an answer for that. They sat on her couch, knees brushing as Daniel unpacked the bag. Still warm apple fritters, dusted with sugar. So, he said, handing her one, why'd you go quiet? Elena picked at the pastry. I don't know how to do this. Eat dessert? This, she gestured between them. Talking every day, letting someone in. It never ends well. Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, softly, who hurt you? The question startled a laugh out of her. Isn't that a little cliché? I'm serious. His eyes searched hers. You're so careful with yourself, like you're waiting for the ground to fall out. Elena looked away. The truth was ugly. Her father walking out when she was 12. Her first love cheating on her in college. Every time she trusted someone, they'd left. She'd learned to leave first. Daniel's hand covered hers. I'm not going anywhere. She wanted to believe him. Later, after the coffee was gone and the sugar lingered on their lips, Daniel stood to leave. Elena walked into the door, suddenly aware of how close he was. Thanks for the invasion, she muttered. Daniel grinned. Anytime. He hesitated. Then leaned in, just enough to make her heart stutter. Can I see you again? Elena should have said no. Instead, she kissed him. It was impulsive, reckless, a brush of her lips against his, quick and testing. She pulled back immediately, cheeks burning. Daniel's breath caught. Then his hands were in her hair, pulling her back in, and this kiss wasn't careful at all. Chapter 4, Symphony of Secrets. The first time Daniel collapsed, they were dancing. Elena had never seen him perform live before. The venue was a dimly lit jazz club, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the hum of anticipation. Daniel stood on stage, fingers flying over his guitar strings like he was born to do nothing else. The spotlight caught the sweat on his brow, the way his lips curled around the microphone as he sang, raw, unfiltered, like he was peeling back his skin for everyone to see. Elena watched from a corner booth, her fingers tight around her whiskey glass. She didn't belong here, in this world of noise and strangers. But then Daniel's eyes found hers mid-song, and the rest of the room blurred. You're the quiet between my notes, he sang, and she knew he was singing to her. The crowd erupted as the set ended. Daniel grinned, bowing dramatically before hopping off stage and weaving through the crowd toward her. See? He grabbed her hands, pulling her up. Told you I'm not completely terrible. Elena rolled her eyes. You were passable. He laughed, tugging her closer. Dance with me. What? No. But the band was already striking up a slow, sultry tune, and Daniel's arms slid around her waist before she could protest. You're impossible, she muttered, but her hands found his shoulders anyway. Admit it, his breath was warm against her ear. You like me. Elena didn't answer. She didn't have to. Then Daniel stiffened. 1 second he was laughing, spinning her under his arm. The next, his grip went slack. His knees buckled. Elena barely caught him before he hit the floor. Daniel? His face was ashen. A tremor ran through him, violent and uncontrolled. The music screeched to a halt as people turned, murmurs rising like a tide. Daniel! His eyelids fluttered. And fine, he slurred. But his hands shook as he pushed himself upright. Someone shouted for water. The band's drummer rushed over, helping Elena haul Daniel to a chair. "What the hell was that?" Elena demanded, her voice low. Daniel wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Low blood sugar. Skipped dinner." She stared at him. He was lying. She knew he was lying. But the crowd was pressing in, concerned voices overlapping, and Daniel was already forcing a smile, waving them off. "Just need a minute. Folks, show's not over yet." Elena's chest ached because for the first time since she'd met him, Daniel looked afraid. Chapter 5, Borrowed Time. Elena didn't sleep that night. She lay stiff beside Daniel in his bed, listening to the ragged rhythm of his breathing. He brushed off the collapse at the club. Just exhaustion, just dehydration. But the way his fingers had trembled as he undid his shirt buttons told another story. Now, dawn bled through the curtains, painting his skin in pale gold. Elena traced the sharp line of his collarbone, her throat tight. Daniel's eyes fluttered open. "Hey," he murmured, voice rough with sleep. "Hey," she withdrew her hand. "We need to talk." A shadow crossed his face. He sat up slowly, running a hand through his tousled hair. "Yeah, I know." The silence between them was thick, suffocating. Elena clenched the sheets in her fists. "What's really going on with you?" Daniel exhaled through his nose. Then, quietly, "Parkinson's. Early onset." The word landed like a punch. Elena had imagined 100 answers: anemia, stress, even drugs. But not this. Not something incurable. Not something progressive. "How long?" Her voice didn't sound like hers. "Diagnosed 2 years ago." He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Doctors gave me 5, maybe 10 if I'm lucky." 5 years. The room tilted, Elena's vision blurred. Daniel reached for her, then hesitated. "I should have told you sooner." "Why didn't you?" "Because," his voice broke, "because you would have run. And I wanted you, just for a little while." Elena recoiled. "You don't get to make that choice for me." "I know." He dragged a hand over his face. "But Elena, look at you. You're already halfway out the door." She stood abruptly, pacing the length of the room. Her chest burned. "This isn't fair." "No," Daniel agreed softly. "It's not." He wanted to scream, to break something, to rewind time and never walk into that damned bookstore. Instead, she turned on him. "What happens now?" Daniel's gaze was steady, resigned. "Now you decide if it's worth it." Chapter 5, Borrowed Time. Elena didn't sleep that night. She lay stiff beside Daniel in his bed, listening to the ragged rhythm of his breathing. He'd brushed off the collapse at the club. Just exhaustion, just dehydration. But the way his fingers had trembled as he undid his shirt buttons told another story. Now dawn bled through the curtains, painting his skin in pale gold. Elena traced the sharp line of his collarbone, her throat tight. Daniel's eyes fluttered open. "Hey!" he murmured, voice rough with sleep. "Hey," she withdrew her hand. "We need to talk." A shadow crossed his face. He sat up slowly, running a hand through his tousled hair. "Yeah, I know." The silence between them was thick, suffocating. Elena clenched the sheets in her fists. "What's really going on with you?" Daniel exhaled through his nose. Then, quietly, "Parkinson's. Early onset." The word landed like a punch. Elena had imagined 100 answers: anemia, stress, even drugs. But not this. Not something incurable. Not something progressive. "How long?" Her voice didn't sound like hers. "Diagnosed 2 years ago." He wouldn't meet her eyes. "Doctors gave me 5, maybe 10 if I'm lucky." 5 years. The room tilted. Elena's vision blurred. Daniel reached for her, then hesitated. "I should have told you sooner." "Why didn't you?" "Because," his voice broke, "because you would have run, and I wanted you just for a little while." Elena recoiled. "You don't get to make that choice for me." "I know." He dragged a hand over his face. "But Elena, look at you. You're already halfway out the door." She stood abruptly, pacing the length of the room, her chest burned. "This isn't fair." "No," Daniel agreed softly. "It's not." She wanted to scream, to break something, to rewind time and never walk into that damn bookstore. Instead, she turned on him. "What happens now?" Daniel's gaze was steady, resigned. "Now, you decide if it's worth it." Chapter 6. Love in the Little Things. Elena didn't leave. She told herself it was temporary, that she'd walk away when the bad days outnumbered the good. But weeks passed, and the scales never tipped. Instead, she memorized the way Daniel hummed off-key in the shower, how he always stole the last bite of her dessert, grinning like a thief, the exact shade of amber his eyes turned in morning light. She collected these moments like seashells, pocketing them before time could erode them away. The guitar lesson. "No! Christ, Elena, not like that!" Daniel laughed, nudging her fingers into position on the fretboard. "You're murdering my poor guitar!" She scowled. "I told you I don't have rhythm. Everyone has rhythm." His arms circled her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "You're just stubborn." His hands covered hers, guiding them through the chords. His skin was warm, his touch steady, no tremors today. Elena leaned back into him. "Play something for me." Daniel's breath hitched. Then softly, he began to sing, "If I Could Save Time in a Bottle." His voice wrapped around her, sweet and aching. Elena closed her eyes, committing the vibration of his chest against her spine to memory. 2. The bad day. The pills made him nauseous. Elena found Daniel curled on the bathroom floor, forehead pressed to the cool tile. She wordlessly wet a cloth and knelt beside him, dabbing at his sweat-slicked neck. "Don't," he muttered when she reached for the medicine bottle. "Makes it worse before it helps." She hated the helplessness that clawed up her throat. "There has to be something else." "There isn't." His eyes were glassy. "This is it, Elena. This is the trade-off. Stability for suffering, time for torment." She gathered him into her lap, rocking slightly as his breathing evened out. His hair was damp under her fingers. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Elena pressed her lips to his temple. "Stop apologizing." 3. The fight. The crumpled flyer sat between them like a grenade. Hartman Trio, East Coast Tour, 12 cities. "You're not seriously considering this." Elena's voice was dangerously calm. Daniel stuffed clothes into a duffel bag. "It's 2 weeks. I'll be fine. You collapsed last month, and I've adjusted my meds since then." He zipped the bag too hard, the sound like a gunshot. "I'm not dead yet, Elena." The words hung between them, sharp and ugly. She crossed her arms. "What happens if you get sick on the road? If you can't play? Then it'll have been worth it." Daniel's jaw was set. "I won't stop living because I'm dying." Elena wanted to shake him, to kiss him, to scream until her lungs gave out. Instead, she threw his favorite mug against the wall. The ceramic shattered spectacularly. Daniel didn't flinch. They stood in the wreckage, breathing hard. Finally, Elena whispered, "Come home to me." Daniel's shoulders slumped. He crossed the room in 2 strides, crushing her against his chest. "Always," he promised into her hair. Chapter 7. The Breaking Point. The video was grainy, shot on a shaky phone camera, but Elena recognized the moment it happened. Daniel on stage, fingers stumbling over a chord. A pause too long. Then, his right hand seizing mid-strum, the guitar slipping from his lap as his body locked rigid. The microphone caught his choked gasp before he pitched forward. The clip ended with the drummer lunging to catch him. Elena's coffee had gone cold by the time she finished watching it for the 12th time. Her phone buzzed with another message from Daniel's bandmate, Jake. "Jake, he's okay. Doc says just a bad reaction to new meds. Don't freak out." She hurled her phone across the studio. It hit a half-finished canvas, leaving a dent in the storm clouds she'd painted. Liar. Daniel didn't call until midnight. Elena answered on the first ring. "You're coming home." A beat of silence. Then his tired laugh. "Hi to you too. I saw the video." "Yeah." A rustling sound like he was adjusting pillows. "It wasn't as bad as it looked." "Bullshit." Her nails bit into her palm. "You promised me you'd be careful." "I am being careful." His voice dropped. "But this is my last tour, Elena. I can't." A cough racked him. "I can't just quit." Something in his tone made her stomach twist. "What do you mean, last?" Silence. Then quietly, "Check the top drawer of my desk." And the papers were stuffed behind sheet music. But the bolded medical terms leapt out. Progression to stage 3. Loss of motor control accelerating. Trial treatment failed. And at the bottom, in Daniel's messy scrawl, 8 to 12 months if decline continues. Elena's knees hit the floor. The dates on the reports were from before his tour. Before he kissed her goodbye with a smile and a "don't worry." Her vision swam. 8 months was nothing. 8 months was a handful of sunrises, a few dozen kisses, a heartbeat in the span of a life. The front door opened. Daniel stood in the doorway, duffel bag slung over his shoulder, face drawn with exhaustion. Elena held up the papers, her hand shaking. "You lied." He didn't deny it. "I wanted more time before." "Before what?" She surged to her feet. "Before I had to watch you fall apart." Daniel flinched. The anger drained out of her as quickly as it came. Elena covered her face with her hands, a sob tearing loose. "You don't get to hide this from me. Not when I'm the one who'll have to bury you." Daniel crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her against his chest. His heartbeat thundered under her ear. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." Elena fisted his shirt, clinging like he might vanish. "No more secrets." Daniel pressed his lips to her hair. "No more secrets." Chapter 8. Fight or Flight. The diagnosis. Flashback 2 years earlier. The neurologist's office smelled like antiseptic and false hope. Daniel, age 28, drummed his fingers on his knee. Tap, 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 unable to stop the tremor. His girlfriend at the time, Rachel, sat stiffly beside him, her perfume cloying in the sterile air. Dr. Chen adjusted her glasses. The scans confirm early-onset Parkinson's. Rachel made a small, wounded noise. Daniel just stared at the MRI lit up on the screen. The shadows where his brain wasn't working right. "How long?" His voice sounded distant. "With treatment? A decade, maybe more." Rachel grabbed his hand. "That's years, Danny. We can—" Daniel stood abruptly. "I need air." He left her crying in that office. Left her completely 3 weeks later, when she kept looking at him like he was already dead. Now, watching Elena sleep, curled in his sheets, he wondered if he should have walked away from her too. Apollo. The studio. Elena found him at 3 a.m., hunched over recording equipment, in their makeshift home studio. His hands shook as he adjusted levels, cursing under his breath. "Daniel," she flicked on the light. He squinted up at her. "Go back to bed." "Not without you." She stepped closer, eyeing the half-finished tracks glowing on the screen. "What are you doing?" "Writing." His voice was rough from overuse. "While I still can." Elena's chest ached. She reached to shut off the computer. "You need rest." Daniel caught her wrist. "No." The word came out too sharp. He softened his grip immediately. "I need to do this. Please." The raw fear in his eyes undid her. Elena pulled up a chair instead. "Then let me help." Apollo, the breaking point. It happened in the grocery store. Daniel froze mid-step in the cereal aisle, muscles locking without warning. His coffee mug slipped from his grip, shattering on the linoleum. Elena grabbed his arm. "Breathe, just breathe." Shoppers stared. A clerk rushed over with a broom. Daniel's face went scarlet with humiliation. "Get me out of here," he ground out. Elena shielded him with her body all the way to the car. He didn't speak for hours afterward, staring blankly at the wall until she pried the whiskey bottle from his hands. "Don't," she whispered. Daniel laughed hollowly. "What's it gonna do? Kill me faster?" The words hung between them like a guillotine. Elena slapped him. The second her palm connected, she gasped, but Daniel just pulled her into a crushing embrace, his tears hot against her neck. "I'm scared," he admitted, voice breaking. Elena clung to him. "Me too." The letter arrived on a Tuesday. Experimental treatment trial, Geneva, 6-month commitment. Elena read it 3 times before looking up. "You're considering this?" Daniel toyed with the edge of the paper. 20% chance it slows progression, and an 80% chance it makes you sicker. She swallowed hard. What if you die over there?" Daniel cupped her face. "I have to try." Elena wanted to beg him to stay, to steal his passport, to chain them both to this moment forever. Instead, she whispered, "When do we leave?" Chapter 9. Promises in the Dark. The Trial. Geneva smelled like rain and sterile hope. The hospital room was smaller than Elena expected, the machines too loud. Daniel lay shirtless as electrodes were affixed to his chest, his ribs more pronounced than they'd been a month ago. "You sure about this?" she asked, gripping his hand. He squeezed back weakly. "It's just 6 months." The first injection sent him into violent convulsions. Elena was shoved out of the room as doctors rushed in. Through the glass, she watched Daniel's body arch off the bed, his mouth open in a soundless scream. "This is how we lose," she thought numbly. The midnight pact. Week 4 brought hallucinations. Daniel thrashed awake at 2 a.m., screaming about spiders under his skin. It took 2 nurses and Elena's voice cutting through his panic to calm him. When they were alone again, he gasped, "Make me a promise." Elena wiped sweat from his brow. "Anything. If it gets worse. If I stop being me." His fingers trembled against hers. "Don't let me linger," she recoiled. "Daniel, promise me." His eyes were wild, desperate. "I watched my grandfather waste away with this. I won't do that to you." The heart monitor beeped between them. Elena pressed their foreheads together. "Only if you promise something first. Name it. Fight like hell until then." Daniel's breath hitched. He sealed the vow with a kiss that tasted like medicine and salt. The last session. Against all odds, the tremors lessened by week 12. Daniel played guitar for the first time in months, his fingers finding the chords through muscle memory. The recording light blinked red as Elena watched from the control room. "When my hands forget how to hold you," he sang, voice rougher now, but still true. "Play this back, so I remember." Elena's vision blurred. She committed every note to memory, the crack on remember, the way his foot tapped the beat even when his legs spasmed. After, he collapsed into her arms, exhausted but grinning. "Told you it'd work." For the first time in months, Elena almost believed him. The relapse. They were packing for home when Daniel's left side gave out. 1 second he was folding a sweater. The next, he was on the floor, his arm twitching uncontrollably. The seizure lasted 47 seconds. Elena counted each one through her tears. Dr. Laurent's face said everything. The treatment, it's not taking. Daniel, slumped in a wheelchair, just nodded, like he'd known all along. On the plane home, Elena clutched his unresponsive hand. "Still fighting," he slurred through numb lips. She kissed his knuckles. "Need to." Chapter 10. The Last Tour. The set list. Daniel spread the crumpled paper across the kitchen table, each song title written in his now shaking script. 1. First Light, 2015. 2. Fault Lines. 9. New, The Fragile Edge of Us. Elena traced the last entry. "You wrote a new one?" "For you." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "One last show at the Velvet Note. Just us and 50 closest strangers." She wanted to scream, to beg him to conserve what little strength remained. But the determined set of his jaw told her this wasn't a negotiation. "Okay," she whispered, "but I'm handling the tickets." The rehearsal. The band knew. Jake kept adjusting Daniel's mic stand to compensate for his swaying balance. The bassist subtly covered for missed cues. No one mentioned how often Daniel's pick slipped from his fingers. During Fault Lines, Daniel missed the same chord 3 times. His fist slammed against the guitar in frustration. "Fuck!" The curse echoed through the empty club. Elena moved toward the stage, but Jake shook his head, pulling the band into a fake argument to give Daniel privacy to collect himself. Through the green room door, she heard the muffled sound of something breaking. The Velvet Notes, marquee simply read, "Daniel Hartman, 1 night only." Elena watched from the lighting booth as Daniel took the stage to thunderous applause. He moved slower now, his once effortless swagger replaced by careful precision. But when the spotlight hit, he lit up. For 90 minutes, the tremors vanished. His voice soared through fault lines, cracked beautifully on Half-Life. And when he introduced the new song, the room held its breath. This is for the woman who made my ending beautiful. The fragile edge of us began with a single, trembling chord. If this is how the light escapes, let me burn bright in your gaze. Elena's knees buckled. She clutched the railing as Daniel sang their love story into existence. Each word, a stone, placed gently in her pockets, weighing her down for the dive into grief she knew was coming. He made it to the final chorus. Then, a missed step. A gasp the microphone caught. Daniel clutched the guitar neck like a lifeline as his legs gave out. The band played on for 2 horrifying seconds before realizing Elena was already sprinting through the crowd as Daniel crumpled. She reached him just as his head lolled back, his pupils blown wide. Chapter 11. Fading Notes. The aftermath. The doctors called it a watershed event, a poetic term for the moment Daniel's body crossed into irreversible decline. Elena memorized the new rhythm of their days. 7 a.m., medication crushed into applesauce. 10:30 a.m., physical therapists' futile exercises. 3:15 p.m., the increasingly one-sided conversations. Daniel's guitar gathered dust in the corner. On a Tuesday, she found him hunched over the instrument at 2 a.m., his right hand clawed and unresponsive. I can't. His voice broke as he plucked a string with his left hand. The note rang horribly out of tune. Elena knelt behind him, her chest pressed to his back. She reached around, placing her fingers over his on the frets. Together, they played a G major, the first chord he'd ever taught her. Daniel wept into the sound hole. Ballist on a Tuesday. He slid a notebook toward her. 1. Hear Elena's finished symphony, unwritten. 2. See the Pacific at dawn. 3. Kiss her one last real kiss. Elena stared at item 1. I haven't composed in years. Daniel's smile was lopsided. Better get started. The promise kept. She rented a piano. For weeks, their apartment filled with dissonant chords as Elena wrestled melodies from her grief. Daniel sat propped in bed, conducting with his one good hand. The night she played the completed piece, his breathing machine kept time like a metronome. It's Avery, he noted. Elena didn't lift her hands from the keys. It's honest. Daniel's laugh turned into a cough. Play it again. She did. 7 times, until dawn. Chapter 12. The letter. The box. Elena found it while packing his sheet music. A wooden crate labeled "Open When" in Daniel's messy scrawl. Inside, 12 envelopes. When you miss me. When you're angry. On your wedding day. Her knees hit the floor. The first letter. Hey, love. If you're reading this, I've officially overstayed my welcome at the world's worst party. First, no sad shit. Pour yourself a whiskey and play our song. Second, every second with you was worth the wreckage. I'd choose you again in every lifetime, even knowing how this ends. P.S. Check behind the fridge. She did. Taped to the coils was a demo tape, labeled "The Fragile Edge, Complete." The confession. On our wedding day. Unopened. Elena, I bought a ring 8 months before the diagnosis. Hid it in my amp. Sometimes I play extra loud just to hear it rattle around in there. Like some idiot romantic ghost. This isn't regret. It's proof. I loved you without caution, without caveats, without considering the clock. Burn this if it hurts. Keep it if it helps. Always. D. She wore the letter in her pocket until the edges frayed. At the bottom of the box, one final envelope. For when you're ready to live again. Elena couldn't bring herself to open it. Not yet. Chapter 13. Goodbye in Stages. The Last Conversation. Daniel waited until golden hour. "Help me outside," he rasped, his once strong arms now bird-bone frail around Elena's shoulders. They sat on the fire escape, knees touching, watching the sun stain the city amber. His breathing was a wet, uneven thing. "You know," he paused to swallow a wince, "I used to pray for more time." Elena laced her fingers with his. "And now? Now I pray you remember me like this." His thumb brushed her knuckles. "Not what I'll become tomorrow." She kissed his temple, salt and medicine and him. Never. The first time he forgot. It happened on a Thursday. Elena walked in with his favorite tea, and Daniel's eyes went wide with terror. "Who?" He scrambled back against the headboard. "Where's Lena?" The mug shattered. She crouched slowly, hands visible. "It's me, Danny. It's Elena." His face crumpled. Oh God. Oh God. They held each other in the wreckage. 3 a.m., when the nightmares got bad, Elena played. Her new composition had teeth, a crashing, furious thing that shook the walls. Daniel would still, his panicked breaths sinking to the tempo until sleep took him. The nurses called it reckless. The doctors called it therapy. Elena called it the only language they had left. On the final stage, when the hospice worker said, "Any day now," Elena didn't cry. She curled beside Daniel in the narrow bed, her lips pressed to the pulse at his wrist. "I'm here," she whispered, though he hadn't spoken in weeks. "I'm right here." His fingers twitched, once, twice, against her palm. A final chord. Chapter 14. The Last Sunrise. The Wake-Up Call. Elena knew before she opened her eyes. The room felt different. The air thinner, the silence heavier. Daniel's breathing had changed in the night. Each inhale a shuddering effort. She sat up slowly. Dawn bled through the curtains, painting his face in pale gold. His eyes were already open, clear, not confused, not afraid. Just Daniel, looking at her like he used to. "Hey," he whispered. Elena's heart stopped. "Hey, back." Chapter 14. He lifted a trembling hand, higher than he'd managed in weeks, and touched her cheek. "You're so beautiful in the morning." The words were slurred, but deliberate. Elena pressed his palm to her lips, memorizing the warmth. "Stay," she begged. Daniel smiled. "Not how this works, love." A last request. "Play for me?" Elena moved to the piano without hesitation. She played their song first, the one he'd written for her, at the velvet note. Then Debussy's Clair de Lune, because he'd once said it sounded like how love felt. When she turned back, Daniel's eyes were closed. His chest rose, once, twice, then stilled. The metronome ticked on. The after. The hospice nurse came. The coroner followed. Elena sat on the fire escape as they took his body away, watching the sunrise stain the sky the color of his favorite guitar pick. In her pocket, the unopened letter crinkled. For when you're ready to live again. Not today, but soon. Chapter 15. Silence After the Storm. The first morning without him. Elena woke to an empty bed. For one blissful second, she forgot. Then the silence rushed in. No labored breathing, no beeping monitors, just the hollow echo of a world without him in it. She rolled over and pressed her face into his pillow. It still smelled like his shampoo. The clock read 8:17 a.m. Daniel had been gone for 6 hours and 22 minutes. The funeral. It rained. Elena stood under a black umbrella, staring at the glossy mahogany casket. Too expensive. Daniel would have hated it. Jake handed her the set list from the velvet note, crumpled and coffee-stained, the way Daniel always kept them in his back pocket. She tucked it into the breast pocket of her dress, right over her heart. When they lowered the casket into the ground, someone sobbed. Elena just stood there, dry-eyed, counting each raindrop that landed on the polished wood. 1, 2, 3. The final letter. She waited until midnight. The envelope was worn at the edges from how often she'd taken it out and put it back, unopened. Now, sitting cross-legged on their bed with a bottle of his favorite bourbon, she finally broke the seal. Inside, a single sheet of paper and a key. Elena, if you're reading this, it means I finally got to hear your symphony. Bet it was magnificent. The key is for a storage unit downtown. Inside, you'll find every song I ever wrote, all the half-finished ones and a few surprises. Do with them what you want. Burn them, sell them, turn them into something new. Just promise me one thing. Keep creating. Even when it hurts, especially when it hurts. Oh, and play our song loud sometimes. I'll be listening. Always yours, Daniel. Elena traced the words with trembling fingers. Then she reached for her piano. The first note. She played until her fingers ached. Played through the anger, the grief, the unbearable loneliness. Played until the sun came up and the neighbors pounded on the walls. When she finally stopped, there were new sheets of music scattered across the floor. Messy, raw, alive. Elena picked up a pen and began again. Chapter 16. The Legacy of Us. The storage unit. The key turned with a satisfying click. Elena hesitated before rolling up the metal door. Dust swirled in the sunlight as she stepped inside, her breath catching at what waited. Guitars, 7 of them, each with a post-it note for when you want to learn properly. Notebooks, lyrics scribbled in margins, coffee stains marking favorite pages. A shoebox labeled Our Soundtrack. Mixtapes from their road trips, concert tickets, her favorite hairpin he'd stolen. At the back, leaning against the wall, a single canvas covered by a sheet. She pulled it free. Her own face stared back, painted in Daniel's bold, untrained strokes. A note taped to the corner. You asked why I loved you? Here's why. The reverse side held a list. 1. The way you hum when you paint. 2. Your terrible, wonderful laugh. 17. How you love, like it's a fight you're determined to win. Elena clutched the canvas to her chest and wept. The performance. 1 year to the day. The Velvet Notes marquee read, Elena Carter, world premiere. She took the stage alone. The crowd hushed. This was his favorite place, she said, fingers resting on the piano keys. So it's only right that you hear this first. The piece began softly, a melody Daniel had written but never finished. Then Elena's own music crashed in, twisting around his notes like vines, until no one could tell where his ended and hers began. When the last chord faded, the silence lasted 3 full seconds before the room erupted. Jake handed her a shot at the bar afterward. He'd have hated that, he lied. Elena laughed, tossing it back. He'd have loved every second. The album, The Fragile Edge, debuted at number 3 on the charts. The cover was Daniel's painting of her. Inside, a dedication. For the man who taught me that endings don't erase what came before. The letter she wrote back. Elena sealed it with a kiss and buried it beside his headstone. No one would ever read it. But somewhere, she hoped, Daniel was smiling. Over 5 years later, the little girl had her father's hands. Elena watched as 4-year-old Sophie plunked out a chaotic melody on the piano, her tiny fingers spanning the keys with unnatural ease. Again, Sophie demanded when she finished. Elena kissed her curls. One more time, as Sophie began playing their song, the one from the album. Elena glanced at the photo on the piano. Daniel, frozen mid-laugh, forever young. The music swelled, and for the first time in years, Elena didn't flinch at the joy. Author's note: this story was born from a simple question. Is love worth the inevitable grief? The answer, I've come to believe, is yes, but only if we're brave enough to embrace both. Thank you for letting me share Elena and Daniel's journey with you. Now, go call someone you love. The end.